Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers joining you on a Monday for what matters most, finishing the 2022-2023 NFL regular season. Connor, we got takes, baby. We got playoff spots locked up. Well, not technically, because I guess we are recording this podcast while Packers-Lions is still going on. So that was a little bit up in the air, but we got most of the playoff picture figured out. A lot of the NFL draft picture figured out. Buddy, we're not going to have any shortage of things to talk about today. How you doing, my friend?
Dude, I'm good. It felt like everything happened at once, right? You had the number one pick war.
Dude.
You had playoff seeding galore, especially in the AFC. Not just seeding, but teams with their lives on the line. You could even say that, of course, across some of the NFC, you had some odd decision-making going on. We got to see Sam Howell today, which was really cool.
It was awesome.
It was awesome. And I just felt, and then, we had games Saturday too. Obviously, we're going to start there, of course, too, because those were really, really impactful. But it was a great finish to the NFL regular season.
Well, let's just start it off, man. We got so many games that we got to get to, so many games that matter that we'd at least need to touch on. Chiefs end up getting the 1 seed. We're going to go back to Saturday's game to start things off. Chiefs get the 1 seed. They defeat the Raiders 31-13. No Jarrett Stidham magic in this one like we had the week before when he took the San Francisco 49ers down to the wire. It was business as usual for the Kansas City Chiefs. And of course, there was a lot of hubbub of what was going to happen with the AFC playoff picture, given the new stipulations that the league voted on Friday. But ultimately, it was like, hey, if the Chiefs win, if the Bills win, if the Bengals win, I know Bengals fans, it's still, they didn't have a chance to get the 2 seed, I know. But essentially, it worked out exactly the way we thought with all those 3 teams winning. But what do you think about this game here, the Chiefs winning against the Raiders in the finale?
To me, what really I took away from it is just how loose they were, Trevor. I think this is a team that they've been here so many times before, going into the postseason with mammoth expectations. They close out the year with their 14th win. They have a 7-2 record on the road. And they looked so loose out there. And yes, they have their flaws. They're not a perfect football team. They're not entering the postseason where everybody's going, how are people going to beat the Chiefs, right? But when you look at the level Mahomes is playing at, he takes the record for most yards from a quarterback. I know it was the combined rushing and passing yards.
Not bad.
He had a shot at Peyton Manning's passing yard single season record, but quite frankly, the Chiefs just didn't need to rear back and try to have him throw for 430 yards in this game. So for me, ultimately, the Raiders have a lot of work to do, and we'll get into them when we really dissect that franchise, which could truly be a whole show. But for the Chiefs, for me, to me, they are the scariest team in the postseason. And I think they have an energy right now where they have no fear. And that I personally will not be picking against them for the entire postseason just because of the experience of Andy Reid, obviously the leadership of Patrick Mahomes. You got a guy like Chris Jones on the defensive side of the ball. We saw some young players step up in this game as well. That's what matters most, is that I personally think the Chiefs are the best team in football right now.
I would cop out that statement and say that they are one of the best, because you look at how Buffalo played this past Sunday. You look at how the Cincinnati Bengals have been playing down the stretch. Those are the 3 teams it feels like are in that top tier.
I would agree.
For the AFC. But it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out, how the Chiefs end up going about their playoff journey now that they have the number 1 overall seed. Something that mattered most to me, you mentioned how loose the Chiefs looked, how controlled they looked. I love the fact that it only took 202 passing yards for Patrick Mahomes in this game for them to score 31 points, right? Isaiah Pacheco, I've been talking about this a couple of weeks now. I want to see the Kansas City Chiefs be able to lean on the run game. Pacheco, 64 yards, 8 carries. Obviously, you got Ronald Jones involved there as well. Ronald Jones had a 4.5 yards per carry average. Pacheco had an 8.0. Mahomes himself, 3 carries for 29 yards, almost 10 yards per carry there. And then you just look at the receivers as well. Travis Kelce, 7 targets, 6 catches. Juju Smith-Schuster, 2 for 2. Valdez-Scantling, 6 for 3. Kadarius Toney, 2 for 2. Justin Watson, 2 for 1. McKinnon was 2 for 2. They're just spreading the ball all over the place. It's not even the fact that they have the golden arm at quarterback. It's that he's clearly very comfortable attacking different levels of the field, attacking all sorts of different defenses with basically every pass catcher they have. It's not just like, oh, look at the chemistry that he has with Travis Kelce, or, if we turn back the clock a little bit, combine Travis Kelce with Tyreek Hill. And that's why a lot of people in the offseason were like, oh, what are the Chiefs going to be? No Tyreek Hill. He was focused so much on Hill, on Kelce, on those guys getting a lot of stats. Now he's spreading the ball out a lot more. And guess what? This Chiefs offense is still incredible. I will mention before we move on to the next game, Raiders, number 7 overall pick in the NFL draft officially, but we will get to that and talk about that a lot more when we get into the Wednesday episode of the refreshing the draft order with the final draft order for the non-playoff teams. Anything else on the Raiders before we move on?
No, like I said, they're obviously out of the picture. They're a huge franchise for this show because of their draft implications, and they need a full dissection that's almost going to take 30 to 40 minutes, in my opinion.
The Jacksonville Jaguars, our Jags, baby, 20-16. Down to the wire. It took a defensive touchdown for them to take the lead at home, but the Jags win the AFC South. Tennessee Titans ended this one 7-game losing streak, 8-game. What was it? I think it was a 7-game losing streak on the season for the Tennessee Titans. They went from 7-3 at one point. They finished 7-10. So this is just brutal. I know they didn't have their quarterback. I know they're banged up. Josh Dobbs was starting again in this game, and he hadn't been he wasn't even the quarterback on the roster for the entire year. So this was a brutal one for Tennessee. It's been a brutal second half of the season. They're now 0-8 against teams that had above 500 record, which is a tough pill to swallow for the team that finished with the best record in the AFC last year. But Connor, Titans or Jags, what matters most here in this one?
It was on the Jacksonville side, and while this one felt like it was a lot harder than it had to be, right, against Josh Dobbs, and that Titans offensive line,
they definitely made it harder than it needed to be.
Like, it was scary hours for a pretty long time. I was like, oh my God, the Titans are really going to pull this off. Mike Vrabel just finds a way. What mattered most to me in this game was nothing to do with Jacksonville's offense or Trevor Lawrence and his rise or the coaching. It's just the full breaking out of defensive identity pieces for the Jags offense that, in my opinion, are headlined by Tyson Campbell and Josh Allen, right? Sure. I thought Josh Allen was unblockable in this game. If you've listened to the show, you know we've highlighted Tennessee's need for offensive line, and you watching this game, you probably saw it really quick. I even had a couple people tweet at me. They're like, you've been talking about Dennis Daly all season. Like, I didn't realize till now. But at the end of the day, Josh Allen took over in this game. I think he had 7 overall pressures. 2 of those were quarterback hits. And then Tyson Campbell's been a very consistent player in coverage for them this season. So Jacksonville, I look at them and go, could they use a piece on the line? And they'll have Calvin Ridley coming back, and they got to figure out Evan Ingram's contract. But their offense isn't something that you look at, especially with Doug there, and you're like, they need this, they need that, they need this. It's just going to grow like a plant. Like, you're just going to keep
good metaphor.
beating Trevor Lawrence, and he's just going to get better steadily with those pieces around him. The defense, I didn't feel like I could say that for a long time about this team. They've had some real duds, and you look around them and you go, okay, there's some talent. I like Devin Lloyd. I like Chad Muma. But they really needed guys to grow. And, I still had Trayvon Walker as a first-round player. I just thought it was a reach as number 1 overall pick, and I thought he had moments in this game. But Campbell and Josh Allen, in my opinion, need to be their identity guys. And when they needed them most, I thought they answered the bell.
Arden Key, too. Arden Key coming up.
I mean, that was a great value signing. He was really, really good for the 49ers. I like that as a value signing, and he had a really nice game.
What matters most to me is Trevor Lawrence now gets playoff experience, right? I don't think the Jags are going to beat the Chargers. Chargers are their first matchup. Although I think it's...
We'll get there.
I mean, it is a decent matchup for the Jags. Right. It is winnable. But, you look at Trevor Lawrence in this game, his back was against the wall, right? It was win and you're in. Win and you get the division title. And I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence didn't make throws in this game. He did. But he left a good amount of throws out there. He left some throws out there, especially, you pinpoint that throw to Zay Jones, which could have been a touchdown, which could have totally changed the game. You got to have that. Franchise quarterbacks got to have that. I remember that throw got made. He overthrew Zay Jones in the back of the end zone. And my immediate first thought was Joe Burrow would never. And that's kind of the bar. That's what I'm looking for Trevor Lawrence to be. He has that incredible arm talent. You just got to be an assassin with it. You've got to, That's the next step to being a franchise quarterback. That's when you really have control over this offense, and you've solidified the fact that this team could be a playoff team every year when you become that type of a quarterback, when you are automatic on those throws that you really need. And I just thought I'm going to be honest, it was a decently shaky game for Trevor Lawrence in a win or go home kind of environment. I love the fact that they did win in the end because, one, he gets that game and it's kind of the jitters really of all of that playoff pressure now off of him. Now they get to host a playoff game. It's back in Jacksonville. You love to see it. And I can't wait for him to get to throw the football under those lights of the playoffs and that be in his resume and that be what he gets to have going into the season. Whether they win a game or not, getting him in the playoffs is going to be crucial for his development because he knows what it's like. It's not just going to be this, he's on a bad Jags team that never makes the playoffs, right? Hopefully they're making the playoffs on a consistent basis. And so him getting this playoff experience, I think, is, of course, what matters most.
No, it's spot on. I'm with you as well. Even if it wasn't on the back of him in this game, his turning the corner moment of the season is what led them to winning the division. So you're right. Even if they get knocked out right away, Trevor Lawrence going to the postseason, you don't ever want that narrative to grow, right? Where it's year 4, Trevor Lawrence, like, is Jacksonville good enough around him to make the playoffs? Now you just kind of nip that in the bud and take care of business. You want to get into Sunday here, Trevor, and start with the the one that I think had the most hype with Bills Patriots.
Sure.
And sure, the spread was 7.5 in favor of Buffalo. So a lot of people expected Buffalo to come out inspired. And boy, did they ever, with 2 touchdowns, a kick return to open the game.
It was amazing.
I give New England credit. They really hung around, maybe even a little better than I expected them to in this game, considering all the emotions at play. It's
Say it with
Buffalo.
your chest. Say it with your chest. You take away those 2 kick return touchdowns, and Buffalo's right. I mean, New England is right there in that game. You take 14 points off the board, even if you sub one of them with 3. Right? You get it's 24-23 on the scoreboard. New England absolutely say it with your chest. New England showed up in this game.
Sure, but now I will go full Lion King and throw them off the cliff because what matters most is that the Bills now own Bill Belichick. Since 2020, the Bills during the regular season are 5-1 against Bill Belichick. Ooh. And do I have to tell you, obviously, when you get into the postseason last year where they throttled them 47-17. So that the 5-1 isn't even counting the postseason demolition. But I mean, I've watched the AFC East my whole life. Okay. I've seen a couple different eras, but for most of my life as a football fan that knew what was going on, the Patriots have owned this division with Bill Belichick.
Sure.
This is Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills division. And you can say it now where these last years aren't fluky. Nobody said that. But now when you really package these 3 years together and look at this, I don't want to say statement, but considering all the emotions from that week and just who the Bills are as a whole, they now in this, it'll come up on a half decade real quick, own New England. And I don't see that changing in the next year or two as New England enters an offseason where they have so many questions to answer. And sure, I could save that statement for like the Jets and the Dolphins are well below the Bills, but nobody cares about the Jets and the Dolphins. It's always been the Patriots. And now it's time for us to completely move aside and say that the Bills have knocked off a narrative that existed for the better part of 15 plus years.
That's a great point. Bills are currently the 2 seed. They're going to get the 2 seed in the AFC. Their first round opponent is going to be the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, another interdivision matchup that they get to play in the postseason. This one's going to be in Buffalo. Dolphins are just they're not the same team that they were in the middle of the season.
They're limping everywhere.
I think the Bills are going to handle this one. And my what matters most is the Bills took an incredibly emotional week for so many reasons. And obviously the wonderful news about Damar Hamlin and how he is recovering certainly goes into this, but they slingshotted that energy, man. And you could just feel it there. And that's something that I think you could absolutely ride into the postseason. They're playing next week. They don't have the bye. So it's just, they get to continue to ride off that high. And I think this team is going to be absolutely dangerous. You talked about the Chiefs being the most dangerous team and a team that you wouldn't want to bet against. I agree with you in a lot of ways, but it's going to be hard for me to bet against the Bills too, right? Especially if it's Bills Chiefs AFC Championship neutral site game for that game if both of them make the AFC Championship. So they're just firing on all cylinders. They're taking that motivation that what has turned into a wonderful story now with Damar Hamlin's recovery. And I think that they're going to be an incredibly motivated team going into the postseason, especially as the 2 seed getting to play back in Buffalo next week. What's the next matchup you want to hit?
Vikings Bears. Admittedly, yeah, I know. Admittedly, one of the games. Yeah, I know. All right. I know.
The Bears did it. The Bears did it, baby.
Yes.
They got the number 1 overall pick.
I mean,
improbable.
We talked about this scenario weeks ago. And you looked at I literally said to you, I said, look at who the Texans play the final week of the season and the state of that Colts team. And look at how awful the Bears have been for the better part of 3 months. And then when it came out, Justin Fields wasn't playing in this game. It was all but a layup.
Not only Justin Fields, but they started Nathan Peterman in this game, right? The Chicago Bears. Peterman goes 11 for 19 with 114 yards and a touchdown, and they go, not good enough, baby. We're putting Timmy Boyle in. Tim, get in there. 2 for 8, 33 yards, 2 picks.
A tank commander that we have not seen. We have not seen this level of commanding the tank.
Unbelievable. Houston couldn't get the message. I guess we'll talk about Houston next. But before
they had an inside agent. We'll get to it.
Yeah. But okay. So, I mean, what was did I miss your what matters most here?
I mean, no, what else could it be? You didn't have to watch this game to have the what matters most. What matters most is Chicago is picking first overall in the draft. And they have a buffet of options. They can trade that pick. They can auction it off for a ton of picks. Something that I'm a little more skeptical of than the general public that's assuming that. But they can take Will Anderson, the best player in the draft, and finally get that star on defense they need for Matt Eberflus. I mean, the options are endless. The options are endless. We won't do it on this pod, but I'm warning everybody, you are also going to hear headlines such as, should the Bears consider taking Bryce Young number 1 overall? And it's obviously not something we're considering, but I'm warning everybody that this discussion the door is now open for this discussion. So what matters most is the Bears are picking number 1 overall. This team can get a lot better, whether that's around Justin Fields, they trade for a ton of picks and get offensive pieces around him. Don't forget they have a second rounder they need to replace because they decided to trade the first pick in the second round for Chase Claypool, whatever. But adding Will Anderson would be truly tremendous. A game changer for the Bears.
They got a late second round pick for the Roquan trade, but still not ideal. Trading the extremely early second rounder for
Roquan's really good. So
and Roquan is really good. Now I don't want to get too much into the draft scenarios with Chicago because we're going to get into that a ton on the Wednesday episode of the podcast. What are your thoughts on Minnesota? Minnesota is now the 3 seed. They'll play the New York Giants in the wild card round.
Giants.
This is a team. This game between the Vikings and the Giants went down to the wire not too long ago, a couple weeks ago. It took a last-second field goal for the Vikings to win that game. I think the Vikings can still make some noise, man.
What time is the game being played? And I'll give you my answer.
Okay, great point. I don't think we know that yet. But I still think that the Vikings are a really good team. The what matters most is obviously that Chicago's picking number 1 overall from this game, but I do think that the Vikings are a good football team. I don't think that they're going to be just this pushover that everybody can write off. If they win this upcoming weekend against the Giants, they'll probably end up playing the 49ers in San Francisco. Admittedly, not a great matchup against the hottest team in the NFL, but I wanted to say I don't think this Vikings team is one that you can write off as easily as some people might want to, just because of the Kirk Cousins narratives and just everything about the Vikings over the last couple of years. I still think they're a good team.
No, I'm glad you said it. I mean, Minnesota, a remarkable entry year for Kevin O'Connell and that staff. They've done so many good things, and I'm excited to see what they can do in the playoffs. So a matchup that you would call, ideal, but we also know it took, a 60-yard field goal last time to finish business against that New York Giants team. That's just a pain in the butt. So that's actually quietly going to be one of the most interesting games of the opening of the playoffs. Let's move to Bucks Falcons, Trevor.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how I can really have a Bucks takeaway from this game.
Not.
I don't. Right?
There's
okay.
Not.
I wanted to make sure
don't
that
force
wasn't.
It. There's not.
No, I didn't want to, and I'm glad you just gave me a little more confidence there. I think for the Falcons, honestly, while I didn't find him remarkable since he took over at quarterback, I think Desmond Ridder did enough where he should go into next summer with a chance to win the job. And I say that even with the thought of, let me pull up our old friend tankathon.com, the Falcons picking 8th. So the Falcons are currently picking 8th in the draft, which very well could be CJ Stroud, Will Levis. Things get crazy, maybe Anthony Richardson. I'm just saying the Falcons are in position where they could theoretically take a quarterback. But when you name those guys, I don't really have the inkling or the excitement to just throw them into the fire. And it's nice to have Desmond Ridder on the roster where, once again, I wasn't admittedly overly high on Ridder in the draft. Even from watching what he's done, I think he's made some throws, and I think he's been okay. But he didn't stink, and he didn't look lost, especially after that first start, where he deserves that shot going into summer to build on this with a better offense, second year in Arthur Smith's system, where I think that really matters a lot to Atlanta, putting all bias aside.
Yeah, look, I was very impressed with 3 rookie performances from the Falcons here to end this regular season for them.
Yeah, the skill guys are awesome.
Desmond Ridder obviously threw his first and second touchdown pass of the season, which was great to see. Played really well in the second half, especially. Again, when he really got into the game, it felt like he was very, very comfortable, which was great. I thought he had a really good second half. Tyler Algier, 24 carries, 135 yards, 5.6 yards per carry average. Love Algier. Love that he's getting a feature role in this offense. Good to see them feeding him. And then Drake London as well. 8 targets, 6 catches, 120 receiving yards. Look, you throw a healthy Kyle Pitts in there, hopefully getting utilized a little bit more than he was at the beginning of the season this year. You're drafting another skilled player somewhere in the passing game, and all of a sudden you're all right. And I think that the what matters most is Falcons obviously getting a win here, but the rookies looked good. The rookies looked good for this team. I still think I'm probably leaning defense for that first pick with the Falcons just because they desperately need it. They really need a big-time defensive playmaker. I know this has been a popular spot for Jared Verse, which, holy cow, Jared Verse going back to school. We haven't talked about that yet. Did not see that one coming.
Earthquake.
Did not see that one coming, but no longer a target for the Falcons at 8, but certainly some edge rushers, some defensive linemen I think could really help out. Maybe corners as well could really help out this team. So I thought the Falcons looked good. There's nothing really to take away with Tampa Bay. I mean, they weren't even playing their starters.
Kyle Trask played.
Yay. Great.
Second round pick, mister.
Sure. Yeah, right. Technically, you are correct. You are correct.
Ravens, Bengals. Bengals win 27-16.
Wasn't close. 16. Yeah, this was not nearly as close as the final score.
No, this game was 24-7 at the half and just kind of went into this ugly snail fest in the second half.
Wow, Isaiah Likely had 13 targets, 8 receptions, 103 yards.
I didn't realize he had 13 targets.
Damn, force feeding the guy.
That's pretty insane. I mean, Anthony Brown somehow dropped back 44 times in this game.
So they didn't play Dobbins in this game. They obviously didn't play Lamar Jackson. Did Mark Andrews play? I don't think he did. He doesn't have a stat.
I'll pull up the snaps. He obviously didn't get any targets in this game, but it does not look like it.
Mark Andrews inactive. Tyler Huntley inactive.
It felt like Baltimore went into this game just kind of understanding the situation.
Which was interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Like, if you win, you've got a chance for a coin flip to host against the Bengals, right?
Yeah, and they just, you never want to say, well, obviously they didn't hold Lamar out. Nobody really understands what's going on there.
Well, I guess the Chargers lost, right? I'm not an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Chargers lost, so
I cannot wait to get into that game, but I know we got to do this first.
So if the Ravens would have won, they would have jumped them, and the Ravens would have been 5. So I guess technically, if they won this game and the Chargers didn't win, then they would not have had the coin flip to be at home. But still, I just felt like it was a little bit weird. My what matters most, not to step on your toes.
No, please go ahead.
Bengals are hot, baby. They're
scorching.
Bengals are about it. This is absolutely a team that is still peaking at the right time and a team that can make another Super Bowl run. I 100% believe it. And my hand is up. I didn't believe it at the beginning of the year. I thought the Bengals were going to take a step back. I thought the Bengals were going to miss the playoff by just one game. I didn't think they were going to be a terrible team, but I did think that it was going to be a regression of a year. They look awesome again. 12-4, obviously AFC North champs. They're going to host a playoff game against the Ravens. Even with Lamar Jackson, I think the Bengals win that one again. So I think the Bengals are going to be off to Buffalo in the second round to face off against the Bills. And what's going to be a incredible game that obviously we didn't even get to finish a week ago. So it was just going to be a Bengals love fest for me. This team's really damn good, and I think they have as good a shot as anybody in the AFC to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that, with just the way they have played for, God, the better part. It feels like over 2 months right now for the Bengals, and I'm just pulling up their calendar. Yeah, so the Bengals, much like the Niners, have not lost since October.
Incredible.
I mean, they're firing on all cylinders.
What are they at home this year? Let me look this up. They are 6-1 at home, including a canceled game against the Bills.
Okay. They've just completely taken care of business since the month of November started. They slaughtered the Panthers. They beat the Steelers. They beat the Titans. They beat the Chiefs. They beat the Browns. They beat the Bucks. They beat New England. And then, they obviously beat Baltimore. So they're a team right now that they don't even really remember what losing is like. And what I like about this team is that I feel like when I watch them, when I watch the Chiefs and when I watch the Bills, as much as I still think the Chiefs are the team I fear the most, there's a lot of times where I watch those teams and I go, man, like, they got superheroes at quarterback, and they really call on that skill a lot. There's something overly wrong with that, I think, because those guys are built for it. They're rare. The Bengals, I really think, have a quarterback like that in Joe Burrow, but I feel like they call on it less sometimes. I just think the Bengals are a more stout defensive team. I think that the skill talent they have is in abundance.
Yep.
They can grind out running games. So I guess what matters most, and I will say it, I really am still the most fearful of the Chiefs in this postseason, but I think I kind of lean with you that the Bengals are the most complete team. And I wonder how that plays in the postseason road.
Houston Texans, emphatic victory over the Indianapolis Colts. 32-31. Connor, it took a 4th and 20 conversion for a touchdown with less than a minute to go in this game, followed up by a giant double middle finger to the owner's box, 2-point conversion after that for the Texans to win this game. The Texans have had the number 1 overall pick since October, right? Maybe September. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but every single mock draft we've done, every single Wednesday episode, it feels like we're starting with the Houston Texans at number 1 overall. Here we are. The final order for the non-playoff teams is set, and Houston blew it. They gave the number 1 overall pick to the Chicago Bears. It makes our offseason a lot more fun because of the creativity that we get to have with some trades up to number 1 overall. But Connor, that's got to be what matters most in this game, right? I'm not even going to ask you. That's got to be what matters most.
Yeah. I find it interesting how many people number 1, the 4th and 20, I just played it back again. It's unbelievable how many defenders are in the area, and the ball just floats through all of them. And then they cut right away to the Colts fans in the stands with their heads down between their legs. Look, the Colts got exactly what they wanted out of this one, man. They got they're number 4. They're picking number 4 overall. A month and a half ago, they were picking like 15th. So let's do that real quick. What matters most for the Colts is that Jeff Saturday came in and did the job. Jeff Saturday got them into the top 5, mostly with incompetence, and the Colts stunk it up.
Yeah.
They are do I get to say it one last time? Will Levis is a Colt.
Well, Will Levis is a Colt. What do you mean one last time?
Yeah, you're right. I could just keep doing it
like 80 times.
I could do it the rest of Will Levis's career. But on the Houston side, Trevor, I'd like to know what you think of this. I was kind of surprised that the reaction as a whole was, it doesn't really matter that much. It doesn't really matter that much.
From
The Bears,
Houston?
I think it matters a lot.
No, I think it matters.
I I thought Bryce Young at number 1 to the Texans, it's just exactly what they need as a reset. And yeah, maybe the Bears take Will Anderson and maybe the Texans just get Bryce Young at 2 and it doesn't really matter. But now you have to deal with the Bears are going to talk to teams. The Bears are going to call you and tell you they're talking to teams and ask if you want a pick swap.
Mm-hmm.
It made everything. And you know what? Honestly, it just feels like there's a still dysfunction in Houston. Like apparently Lovie Smith. Oh,
yeah.
You have I mean, that's another thing. Is this a desirable place for people to work right now in a sense of, is Nick Caserio getting shown the door with Lovie Smith?
Mm-hmm.
Did these two ever really work together? Did Lovie ever really have a chance? Is Nick Caserio the right guy for this massive, massive offseason ahead for them? I think what matters most is this seemed to open up so many more questions about the future of the Houston Texans compared to if they just got the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, no, absolutely. Before the game came out, Pro Football Talk put out a report that Caserio and Lovie Smith could very well be out, not just Lovie. Caserio is there as well. And it is funny how I think the beginning of that article said Lovie Smith is kind of like auditioning for a second year as head coach. Well, actually, the way that they pulled it off, you would think that would be positive for a second year as head coach, but lost in the number 1 overall pick. So I don't know how ownership actually feels about that one. I don't really know what happens with Houston. And again, I don't want to dig too much into it because we're going to talk about this a ton on the Wednesday show. But this changes the draft landscape in a massive way, massive way. And I'll save most of our conversation about the Texans for Wednesday. But for the Colts, certainly, what a fantastic end of the season that you have had, kind of collapsing to get a top 5 overall pick. Now you have a shot at. Now it's not just this. Well, I guess do we take Will Levis? Now it's okay. Now you got a shot. Maybe it's C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and at number 4 overall, you even now have a realistic shot to trade up to 1. Right, to go get Bryce Young if you
really
want.
Good
Something
point.
That we
really
thought was unthinkable. And so I'll just say that and kind of save the rest of the conversation for Wednesday's episode. But yeah, that was my thoughts on this game.
And as always, shout out to Roy Lopez.
Shout out to Roy Lopez. Verified, baby. Verified.
The GOAT.
Dolphins. Right. Jets.
Yes, Dolphins, Jets. This was the thriller that we all been waiting for all day.
Okay,
waiting all day for Dolphins, Jets.
Well, that's how the song goes, as everybody knows. Final score to this game was 11-6. I'm going to read off with you guys the quarter scores here. First quarter, 0-0. Second quarter, 3-3. Third quarter, we had an additional 3 added by the Miami Dolphins. And in the fourth quarter, we got 3 for the Jets and 5 for the Dolphins. What an abysmal stat line for the scorecards. All right, Connor, what mattered most from this one?
You want to know how well I know this team? On a day that they went into the game starting a replacement offensive line, they played a lot of their young guys on defense. Joe Flacco was under center. On SNY pregame, I have to do, as part of a segment we do, I have to make a same-game parlay. And I was like, guys, honestly, I put together this parlay. Since the Jets are playing all backups, the prop board is barren. Here's the parlay, but it's my least favorite one of the season. I don't really care about this. I'll give you my best bet for the Jets in this game. My best bet was Greg Zuerlein over 1.5 field goals.
Oh, brother, money. I had to put the mortgage on it. Come on.
It's probably the only thing that hit besides
me. Why didn't you text me that?
I know.
We could have been doing the podcast in mink. We could have been covered in mink.
Oh, I know. With buckets of bubbly just everywhere.
Oakley shades.
Oh man.
I'd have put the paycheck on it.
It's smashed. It's smashed. This game. So the Dolphins go to the playoffs. Boy, did it take a long road to get there. There was a wild phantom horse collar call at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, just the officiating crew, I believe, was the same as the Terry McLaurin. Am I on the line? Yes. Penalty.
Didn't McLaurin do the thumbs up to him?
Like twice.
And he just stared at him. Or did he give him the thumbs up too? I can't remember.
McLaurin said in the interview he had the indication that they were good. So this crew is having one hell of a year. All that being said, I'm not saying the Jets didn't deserve to lose, and this is a meaningless game. Now the Jets are picking 13, whatever. The Dolphins go to the playoffs. They are limping into the playoffs. What matters most for the Dolphins is that Mike McDaniel keeps his job. I found it truly absurd that there was legitimate rumors. It seemed, I think, legitimate rumors. If they weren't legitimate, they picked up like wildfire that they were going to fire him if he lost this game.
Oh, McDaniel? Yeah, I remember that.
That would have been a bad decision, in my humble opinion.
I think that was one report that kind of like went crazy.
It did it one of those?
Yeah, I think it was one.
I mean, either way, like, you never know.
Because everybody's reaction was exactly the same, right? McDaniel would be unemployed for 30 seconds.
It felt that way.
You know, it's like if he would have gotten fired by Miami, if they lose this game and he gets fired, he'd be unemployed for 30 seconds. 30 seconds. So, yeah, I don't really have a what matters most from this game. I guess the what matters most is the Dolphins are in no way a serious playoff contender for me. I never felt that way during this game, at least. You know, at one point in the season, it felt like they could have been a serious playoff contender, but they
went all in at the deadline.
That is not that has not come to fruition. And I think I said this last week, or maybe it was the year before. Dolphins fans know this has been frustrating, but the ebbs and flows, the roller coaster that has been this season is going to be a good thing in the long run for McDaniel. He started off really hot. His offenses started off hot, baby. They were all anybody could talk about. What a hire. Look at the points. Look at how they're using all these speed on the offense. And then I think defense has kind of figured it out a little bit. Obviously, Tua being in and out of the lineup definitely hurt that. But you learn. You learn what starting the season off with good offensive game plans is. You learn what defenses are doing to counter it in the middle of the season. And now he's got that experience going into the next year. So I think the Dolphins are going to be fine long-term, but this year, obviously, I don't think it's too much their year. Shout out Garrett Wilson, though.
I think the
17
two little
targets. 17 targets.
17. Joe Flacco reached a point in this game where he only threw to Garrett Wilson, and it was the right play. So I think.
Wait a second. Hold on. What was Garrett Wilson's threat percentage in this game?
Oh, God.
Like 50%?
It had to be.
Okay, let me look. Hold on. We're pulling it up.
Keep in mind, he has a phantom line. So his line says he caught 9 passes for 89 yards. He actually lost, I think, 15 yards on the last play of the game where they lateral. So he went over 100 yards.
So he had a true over 100 yards.
Yeah.
Threat was 54.8.
Pretty rare stuff.
Dude, Flacco was locked the hell in. Okay, all right, what's the next game? We got to move on.
Yep. Panthers Saints. Woo! I mean, when I checked in on this game, Sam Darnold was 2 for 8.
Good win for
I think 2 yards and 1 pick.
Oh my God, Darnold's stat line.
It didn't really get much better from there.
It's 5 for 15, 43 yards and 2 picks. No.
Yeah, Darnold came crashing back down to earth.
How did the Panthers win this game? What?
They ran the ball 41 times.
Andy Dalton went 15 for 25, 171 yards. I didn't get a ton of eyes on this one. 1 touchdown. Alvin Kamara went over 100 yards. Did. Chris Olave got 60 yards. Hold on. Whoa. Tyrann Mathieu had a forced fumble. Andrew McDowell had a forced fumble. Tyrann Mathieu had an interception. Daniel Sorensen had an interception. How did the Panthers win this game?
Just pure insanity.
How did they win?
Some of the ugliest football of all time.
Sweet Jesus. That's amazing.
Why? So I guess what matters most.
Incredible.
Why is my...
Well done, Steve Wilkes.
Yeah, I think Steve... You think Steve Wilkes keeps his job?
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't. I think the Tepper wants to take a big swing because I think that's kind of...
Yeah, it's tough to keep the interim when you're Tepper.
I heard...
bought a house, mind you, to bulldoze it.
So it came out... Jay Glazer said this beginning of the day. Panthers planning on interviewing Jim Caldwell and Frank Reich, as well as obviously they're going to consider Steve Wilkes, but Jim Caldwell and Frank Reich as the two. No, those aren't as big of swings. Hey, man. Frank Reich's a Panthers
I like Frank
legend.
Reich. That's not a
Panthers legend. He's a Panthers legend. You watch out. There were rumors about Jim Harbaugh potentially to Carolina, but then it kind of came out that those rumors were more of Jim Harbaugh's camp.
Yeah, go the college route again. It worked so good the first time.
I don't want Jim Harbaugh in Carolina anyways. The take from this one is Panthers have the 9th overall pick and Philly ends up with a top 10 pick.
And Chris Olave was vastly underappreciated in the offensive rookie of the year race.
Steve Wilkes got a team win with Sam Darnold having 2 interceptions and 43 passing yards. I mean, come on, folks. Consider the man.
They just keep running the ball. Want to do Browns Steelers?
Sure. My only big takeaway that I have from this one is Kenny Pickett and George Pickens are here to stay, baby.
Yeah, brother.
I think Kenny Pickett's had a really nice second half of the season. Has he lit the world on fire? No, he hasn't. But there have been plenty of moments that you have wanted to see out of a rookie year from Kenny Pickett. I think it's a really good building block for him going into next season. I think George Pickens is solidifying himself as the number 1 option on this team, certainly with Deontay Johnson as well. Need to get Deontay Johnson into the end zone next year, since he literally did not get into the end zone one time this season. Brother.
Did he make it to 150 targets without a touchdown? I think he did.
He had 10 targets this game.
I really think he did.
Deontay Johnson had 10 targets, 2 catches, 38 yards. Kenny, I just complimented you. Lock it in, my guy. Lock it in.
He also he had a lot of egregious drops.
Yeah.
Deontay.
So not a ton to take away from this one. Pittsburgh Steelers actually had a chance to make the playoffs down the stretch. They are, as it stands right now, picking 18th, which is the final cutoff number for the 9 playoff teams. It is incredible that Mike Tomlin, once again, with this Steelers team, Connor, 9-8, above 500. One of the greatest coaches.
Crazy.
One of the greatest coaches. But yeah, what matters most, love what I've seen from Kenny Pickett this year. Love the Kenny Pickett, George Pickett's connection. I think it's a massive one going into next year for the Steelers.
So just to piggyback off your Pickett selection, which I'm a big fan of, Kenny Pickett, since October, only threw 1 interception. That's really impressive for a rookie on a not so great team.
It's good shit, Kenny.
They finished strong, but when you go to the Steelers, they're still kind of figuring out that line. They have targets. They have a good defense that got healthy, but had its struggles for a long time because of the lack of health. 1 interception since October. It's really impressive. It's really impressive. And I'm with you, Trev. I think now Kenny goes into the summer with a lot of confidence, and I think the confidence bounces back from the coaching staff and the team to him.
Yeah. No,
and that's very, very important for the Steelers franchise.
I definitely agree.
Do you have any Browns takes? Not really. Watson's still not looking.
Yeah,
I mean, throw it out this year. Just throw it out.
The Browns certainly hope that you have to.
Yeah.
I'm not losing any sleep over Deshaun Watson struggling this year, but if you're the Browns, that's just what you got to do. They took the suspension. They go into next year. We'll see what Watson is next year for this team, but certainly aren't getting any tears from me in that regard with the Browns. But I didn't have a lot of Browns takes this year. They were a team that they didn't have their quarterback for more than half of the season. And then when he got back there, he wasn't very good. So the team around him just was not very competitive. So the Browns all year long, if Browns fans are listening to this podcast, I'm sorry, we haven't had a lot of words to say about the Browns in the regular season, but it has been a forgettable season for them. Nick Chubb, another fantastic year. I definitely want to point that out. So salute to Nick Chubb. Obviously, Myles Garrett, absolute animal. That continues to be the same. Nothing's changing there. But we'll talk about draft needs and how this Cleveland Browns team can get better during the draft. We will definitely get into that. Before we go on,
here's one for you.
Yeah, go ahead. Did
Chubb just have the quietest 1,500 rushing yard year of all time? I agree. I really do.
Yes.
Insane.
Man rush for 1,500 yards. Yeah.
Nobody cared.
Nobody cared. Before we go to the next one, Connor, I have a question for you.
I'm not answering.
Speaking of Kenny Pickett, that's fair. What if you could have invested in Kenny Pickett's stock before this year, right? If you would have, your investment would have been worth over 400,000%. No, I'm just kidding. It wouldn't have been that high, but you'd definitely be cashing out because it would have been a middling bet at the beginning of the season before he was even starting. Now the young man is playing well. Now it's not a question of what if, but now it's a who's next. All right. Mojo, which is the all new sports stock market, lets you invest in your favorite athletes and cash in on your passions. Sign up right now in the Apple App Store to get your first stock for free, worth up to $10 if you hit it right. Over 300 players are listed on Mojo, so you can invest in rookies like Drake London, like Chris Olave, rising stars like oh man, who's a good? I just said two, I guess. Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, those guys, those are definitely rising stars. Comeback candidates, guys like Saquon Barkley, guys who have the quietest 1,500 season of all time, and Nick Chubb, right? Everybody. Go long and make money when an underrated diamond in the rough breaks out, or short sell an overrated rival and make some money if they flop, which is an interesting way to do it. Prices move with every play, every game, and every headline, so you can buy and sell instantly anytime all year long, so the action never stops. Mojo is live in New Jersey, so download Mojo in the Apple App Store today to start turning your playmakers into money makers. Must be 21 years or older to use Mojo, and located in the great state of New Jersey to make trades. If you got a gambling problem, help is available at 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit mojo.com for more info. Connor, where are we going next?
Chargers, Broncos.
Oh, you said you can't wait to talk about this game. Go off, King.
You're the best.
Go off.
Okay. Nothing could have came from this game. Full clarity. They had to know that going in because they played after the Ravens-Bengals. I'll start with the Chargers, obviously. Trevor, what was Brandon Staley doing?
The cat cow stretch a couple weeks ago? Dude, it's great for the lower back.
I understand if you came out in the first quarter and you wanted live action for your guys.
Yeah.
And they went right down the field. Everything seemed fine.
Mm-hmm.
They were even handing Eckler the ball, which, once again, this is a meaningless game. Austin Eckler's been playing at a high level in this league for quite some time. I don't think he needed carries, but that was the only time where I'm like, okay, I get why they brought their guys out, but you really have to hand Eckler the ball. And then it just kept going. And then guys started to get banged up. And I know Mike Williams, the early indication on him is that it's back spasms. MRI is negative per Lindsay theory. But what is going on? Like,
I don't know.
What could have been going through his... Trevor, if something serious happened, it's borderline a fireable offense.
So the Bucs did the same thing, right, against the Falcons. The Bucs played their starters, or at least Tom Brady was out there to start the game. And they did so because clearly the offense has been cheeks for most of the season. So it's not like, and that's a scientific term there. Not sure you guys know about it, but they use it a lot over in Europe. That was why you play them, because you want the offense to get better. You want to kind of iron out some wrinkles going into the postseason. But Brady didn't play the whole game, and I felt like the Chargers starters played a little bit longer than they need to. But maybe it's just that. Maybe it was hey, the Chargers play the Jags next week. They think they can beat them, but then that next game that they play, if they do so, is going to be probably against Kansas City. They want this offense to be as tip-top as it possibly can be. And maybe that was just the whole reason. Now, would I have played the starters? Probably not. No. If you don't have enough experience in 17 games, granted, there were some in and outs with some injuries in the lineup. If you don't have enough experience in 17 games and your seat is locked and you can't go anywhere, I'm at least resting the running back, right? I'm at least not letting Austin Eckler take hits.
I get the Herbert drive out of the gate.
Yeah.
I don't know. Joey Bosa got banged up.
Herbert attempted 37 passes in this game.
If you didn't tell anybody the situation, they would think the Chargers are playing for the 1 seed watching this game.
The other thing that matters most in this one, it was reported before the game's kicked off that the Broncos have requested and been granted permission to interview Sean Payton as their head coach, which is big because Sean Payton's probably going to have his pick of basically any team in the NFL that he would want to go to. Now, you got to talk about compensation with the Saints because the Saints still own his contract, what goes into that. But certainly, if it feels like anybody's really going to be able to turn around Russell Wilson and make the most out of that massive investment in his contract, there's a reason why the Broncos are going all in on the number one choices in the head coaching vacancy right now. So that is also what matters most.
Certainly does. I think for the Broncos, you take any good Russ performance as hopeful. And I thought this was one. I thought Russ looked like what they thought they were getting. Maybe it doesn't mean anything in a no-stakes game, but all you can do with that contract and what you gave up for him, God, have you ever opened his Pro Football Reference page?
Who's?
Russell Wilson. Russell Carrington Wilson, in parentheses.
Nice middle name. Mr. Unlimited.
Dangerous, the
Yeah.
asterisk, Mr. Unlimited, or Robot Russell.
Nobody calls him that.
Nobody calls him that. It's like Prince Aladdin with Jimmy G. Nobody calls him that.
No, nobody calls him
Just
that.
there on the page. Excellent trolling.
I will say I'm very excited for Justin Herbert versus Trevor Lawrence next week.
Yeah.
Very excited for this young quarterback matchup. I think Chargers are going to win that game. I just wasn't super impressed with how Jacksonville was handling themselves last week, but maybe it was jitters that are going to be fully out of it. I'd love to see these two offenses go back and forth with each other. Certainly if most parties are healthy. I think the Chargers have the slight edge, but excited to watch two young arms in the game have a throw off next week in Jacksonville. New York Giants.
Yeah.
Take it down to the wire against the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts started in this game. Played the entire game. And they did what needed to be done. They secured the 1 seed. Now they get to rest Jalen Hurts, obviously, a week, so everybody gets the week off. They get to rest Lane Johnson another week. Everybody gets the week off. And the entire NFC playoffs run through Philadelphia. That is, of course, what matters most here for me. Giants, they didn't play anybody that's going to be a massive difference maker in the shout out Brendan Staley.
Yeah, take a note.
David Webb started in this game.
King Brian Dable.
Hey, you know what? Can we shout out Kenny Golladay? Incredible touchdown catch in this game. My guy got 7 targets, had 2 catches, 30 yards, and one was a 25-yard touchdown near the end of the game to get it within onside kick distance in this one. So shout out Kenny Golladay. Very frustrating time in New York, but nice way to end off the season for you, my guy.
Trevor, did you know?
No, probably not.
That was Kenny Galladay's first touchdown as a Giant.
Damn, it's tough. Did you see the tweets that were going around this week where it was like Kenny Golladay needs just 76 catches against the Eagles to get his 750,000 bonus in his contract?
So dumb, but it makes me laugh every time. Every time I laugh.
Defensive.
Because you read it and you're like, oh, I didn't know that was. And then you're like, wait a minute.
Anytime you read a fully put together graphic that says needs just, you believe it, you're going to read the rest of it. You're just like, oh, just 76 catches. Well, crazy. What?
So the playoffs run through Philadelphia.
Yep.
The Giants, I think, out of all things they could have gotten, probably feel pretty good about Minnesota.
Yeah,
internally.
you have to. Yeah, you have to.
And one, a mini last note on this game, you just wonder, what can Brian, what's the minimum Brian Dable can win with? Right? Or not, I don't want to say win with.
I mean, he was close this
What can
week.
he be competitive with?
He was close with Davis Webb.
I know.
Incredible.
Davis friggin' Webb, who ran somebody over into the end zone.
Let's do Cardinals 49ers before we do the other two, because I just want to get Cardinals 49ers out of the way. 49ers lock up the 2 seed. Another
the plow just plays again. What are we doing?
The Arizona snowblow.
Yeah, there we go.
Brock Purdy, 15. I should have said the desert snowplow. God, that was bad. Rewind this, Ryan. Sorry.
You're workshopping.
Brock Purdy, 15 for 20, 178 yards, 3 touchdowns. 2 of them go to George Kittle. 1 of them goes to Christian McCaffrey. Elijah Mitchell also had 2 touchdowns on the ground. My guy had 5 attempts, and 2 of them were for touchdowns. Nothing really to talk about on Arizona's side of the ball. You mentioned David Blau starting at quarterback in this game. AJ Green almost had 100 yards in 2023. Imagine. What matters most for me for this one is, of course, the San Francisco 49ers getting the 2 seed. And then also a report that I saw that Steve Keim could very well be out as general manager of the Arizona Cardinals, which is important because his team has the number 3 overall pick. I would think Cliff Kingsbury is also probably going with him, but maybe not.
Long contract, but yeah.
Look, maybe super handsome people just get all the luck. So I don't know. Maybe he won't be out of it, but I feel like he kind of should be, but he could certainly be back. But those are the 2 things that I thought mattered most.
Aiden Hutchinson is just wreaking havoc right now against Green Bay. Yeah, he has 2 sacks in the first half.
God damn, what a stud.
Yeah, it's pretty good for him. This game, I mean, yeah, you're right. there's two parts of me with San Francisco. There's the part of me that wonders, can this team win a Super Bowl, of course, right now? And then two, I mean, we are really entering a Trey Lance versus Brock Purdy summer. And I think it's freaking fascinating. Mr. Irrelevant versus the guy they traded everything to get.
No, you got to trade Trey Lance. I don't know if they're going to do that.
No, I think they're going to let them go at it.
Yeah, you're probably right. Rams, Seahawks.
The Rams keep doing this to Seattle.
They do it, though. They come out victorious in overtime, baby. This season started so thrilling for the Seahawks with their victory over Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos. And the regular season finished just as thrilling with them knocking a field goal in there in overtime to clinch a playoff berth. This game was fun, man. Jalen Ramsey had 2 interceptions in this game. Geno Smith threw for over 200 yards. And I think in this game, Geno Smith broke the single season passing record for Seattle, which is incredible.
Russ's record.
Yeah, thinking how long Russ was there. Another incredible performance by Kenneth Walker, 29 attempts, 114 yards. They just lean on him, and he continues to deliver. Big shout out to Cam Akers, who we weren't sure what his NFL career was going to be after his Achilles injury. Another 100-yard game, 21 attempts, 104 yards. Baker Mayfield, didn't look great in this one, but we figured that this would probably be the end for Baker Mayfield. What I do want to talk about as what matters most, do you think Sean McVay's done?
Yes. I thought that when...
I also think he's done.
When the whole coaching staff rumors started to heat up about guys leaving, and I just think the Rams had all caught up to them real quick. And I think McVay's burnt out, honestly. I really do.
I think McVay's burnt out. McVay has his Super Bowl. McVay and Snead went all in, shot their shot last year, and it paid off in the biggest way. And it worked. And he's got a cushy broadcasting job. Not to make that sound like broadcasting jobs are the easiest things in the world. Didn't mean to say that, but it's better than coaching. But coaching is just wild hours and everything like that. So he's already got a broadcast job lined up. And the thing is, Sean McVay is how old?
36. He was hired by the Rams when he was the ripe age of 30 years old.
He is 36 years old. You are right. He could retire. He could go do broadcasting for 3 seasons, and he could come back as a 40-year-old. He could coach then another 6 years. He could retire, go back to broadcasting for another 3 years, and come back as a 50-year-old. He could then coach for another 5 years, retire, go back to broadcasting. This guy has just the life set up for him. The success that he has had at a young age is unbelievable. And I do think that I'm leaning towards him walking away this offseason. I think it's going to happen.
I think so too. And who could blame the guy? You already want to see. It feels very. We've seen this at times, right? When did John Madden walk away? I always forget. I'm checking right now. Madden walked away. He coached from the Raiders from 1969
78
to 1978. He was 103-32. That's absolutely insane. He won a Super Bowl in 76, and then he walked away after the 78 season.
So he was 48? No, okay. He
had to be young.
42.
42.
He was 42 when he walked away.
And think about it, back then, Sean McVay was hired as a 30-year-old. It was one of the most unprecedented things we'd ever seen, right? There's guys in the locker room that are older than Sean McVay, a lot of guys. So you go back to the John Madden route where, like you nailed it, Trevor. He could walk away. I think he's going to love broadcasting. I really do. I think some guys do it because it's the thing to do, right? You make a ton of money.
Oh, he's going to love it.
It hasn't worked out. It doesn't work out for some guys. Some guys do it and they stink at it, and then they just walk away and it doesn't work, or they don't feel the same way about it as they did when they played, coach, whatever. He's going to be A1, just tremendous. But I agree with you that you go get a mega deal, probably get $20 million a year as a broadcaster. You do that, which is more than coaching. It's much less stressful. He's got a wife. Maybe he wants a family, all those things. settle down for a little bit and do that, and you're still in the game. And then you'll be the hottest head coaching candidate every year that you want your name floated out there by your agent.
Yep.
It's or all of that, which is dream world and right in front of Sean McVay, or you can come back and coach whatever is left of this Rams team. There's just no way. There's no way.
No, I think he's
even if he loves football that much, being on the field with the headset on, he would be better suited to go somewhere else.
Last game that we're going to talk about here on this show, Cowboys Commanders. Cowboys went in with a chance at the 1 seed, right? No.
Yeah. No. Like the tiniest chance, yes. But
yeah, right. The Cardinals would have had to beat the Niners. Cowboys would have had to win. Eagles would have had to lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So very unlikely. But
either whether it was the 1 seed or whether it was just the division, I can't remember. They end up losing 26-6 to the Washington Commanders. Connor, what matters most? Worried about the Cowboys. The Cowboys play the Buccaneers next week, and we've joked about it. The Bucs are a bad football team. The Bucs could absolutely beat the Dallas Cowboys next weekend in Tampa. I would be very worried about the Dallas Cowboys. They are so hot and cold.
They really are.
Of an offense, especially. I know a lot of teams have their up and downs, but they are so hot and cold. They're playing with fire here with some of their downturns, and I don't know what it's going to be for. I don't know what offense is going to show up next week in Tampa, but there's a legit shot that they could absolutely be a 12-win team and lose in the first round.
There's a chance for sure. They looked flat. They never looked right in this game. I'll take the other side. I really liked what I saw from Sam Howell.
Baby.
It makes you wonder, was no ads Heineke in that little potential playoff run not the greatest thing for the Commanders? Because I feel like we should have saw a month of Sam Howell.
It would have been nice. Would have been nice for them to see.
And I get why they couldn't do that. They couldn't put a playoff chase in the hands of Sam Howell. That's not fair to him. It's not fair to the team. It's not fair to anybody. But in this one start from Sam Howell, if you just look up the box score, you go, he went 11-19, 169 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. And he ran for 35 yards and a touchdown. You go, okay. You watch him play, huge arm, made a beautiful deep throw to Terry McLaurin in this game. His mobility brought a different dimension down in the red. And the guy has an energy that guys have always loved to follow. We saw it at UNC. I'm not saying Sam Howell's the future in Washington, but I'm saying he should have got the Desmond Ridder opportunity where maybe you go into next summer and let Sam Howell compete with somebody. And I don't really see this Washington team doing that. I think they're going to be on a Derek Carr or Jimmy G or some nature of that. But
probably depends who's head coach. Like, is Rivera?
That's a really good point. That's a really, really good point.
If Rivera is still going to be head coach, Rivera is going to go into the season on the hot seat. So, like, is he just going to have to get a veteran quarterback in there? You know, he might not have the luxury of just like going young.
No, and they picked
whoever.
So forget that.
Right.
But
yeah.
No, what mattered most to me is I liked what I saw from the Sam Howell experience in this game.
Good.
Because I think they have built an offense that should be Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson working downfield off of a tough play action run game featuring Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson and a tough offensive line. And I think Sam Howell is the best suited quarterback for that on this roster. And we saw one game. But I get it.
Love the Sam Howell takes. Let us know what your takes are of every game that we talked about here this weekend, every game that you watch, whether you're a fan of the team or not. You could certainly throw your draft takes into it as well. Just know that we're going to get a lot deeper into the draft takes for the Wednesday show once the order becomes absolutely final for the non-playoff teams when Green Bay and Detroit end up finishing their game. But let us know what you thought of this episode, of the season, of the playoff bracket as it finalized. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can let us know right below. Easy to comment there. Hit us up on Twitter as well, at Tampa Bay Trey, at Connor J. Rogers. You can hit us up on Instagram as well. I'm laughing because I thought about when Houston won that game, we got so many tweets from people who were just like, can't wait for the show, baby. So obviously we touched on it a little bit here, but we're going to get into Bears in Houston in depth and where they're picking at number 1 and number 2 on the Wednesday episode. Connor, anything else before we get out of here?
No, I think you covered it well. I am genuinely really excited for the draft edition this week because we have an order now, which is amazing. We have drama at the top. Jared Verse decided to go back to school, which feels very Olu Fashanu to me.
2 potential top 10 guys didn't declare.
I had them both there, and do what's best for you. Man, it's exciting. It's really exciting. It's our time to shine.
Oh, it's a fun time of year. Always is. Excited for the Wednesday show. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's Connor Rogers. Thank you for watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. See you guys on Wednesday.